Good evening and welcome to ITV News Meridian.
Tonight's headlines. Declaring war on Ebola. Army medics from the south prepare to help victims in Africa. But there's confusion at the airport over screen.
Jailed the hovercraft pilot who was drunk at the helm. Footage just released shows the moment he missed his landing pad.
30 years on, families affected by the Brighton bomb tell how the atrocity has affected their everyday lives.
Anne Lewis is on the case. Out of retirement this evening, we go behind the scenes as the popular detective pits his wits against crime. Good evening. Army medics are tonight preparing to travel to West Africa to join efforts to stop the deadly Ebola virus from spreading.
Teams from Aldershot have been practising in a mock hospital unit to prepare themselves, or at least try to prepare, for what lies ahead in Sierra Leone.
Here, Heathrow and Gatwick airports are getting ready to screen passengers arriving from areas affected by the disease. Juliet Fletcher has been speaking to families waiting anxiously for news of relatives.
These army medics from Aldershot have been training in a mock field hospital, learning how to treat patients with Ebola and how to protect themselves. They'll soon be heading out to Sierra Leone to run a 12-bed facility supporting the local health workers.
You hear obviously about the conditions and obviously what the crisis in Sierra Leone. So it would be unusual not to feel nervous in that situation.
Back at home, the concern for relatives abroad is increasing. Victor Karoma, who runs the Alliance for Cohesion and Racial Equality in Reading, speaks to his nephew daily for an update.
Has any member of our family been infected? Do you know?
At the moment, I haven't heard of any infection.
Victor says his main concern is that the healthcare system is failing and patients aren't receiving the treatment they need.
Because what you dread is that first call to say, oh, this family member has been infected. Because that would then mean other family members are infected.
The government has announced that enhanced screening for Ebola will now be carried out at Heathrow and Gatwick airports and also at the Eurostar terminals. Although at Gatwick, officials have said they've yet to be told exactly how the screening will work. The Ebola outbreak has already killed more than 3,000 people and infected more than 7,000, mostly in West Africa. Medical experts in this country say it's important, though, not to panic.
I wouldn't expect it to spread in the UK. The Public Health England really have this locked down, and I'm confident that they'll be able to stop Ebola if and when it does arrive.
Vital research into the Ebola virus is being carried out at Porton Down near Salisbury. This is where tests are carried out on suspected cases and they step in to help if there's a potential emergency. To date, there have been no cases reported in the UK and people have mixed views about the risks to public health here.
Oh yes, I am quite concerned about it because I was just living in Egypt until recently and you know, I wondered whether it was going to come over here or not.
No, I'm not really worried about it coming into the country. It all seems to be fairly well managed at the moment, and I think sometimes there could be a bit too much hysteria about things.
I've seen it on the news and yeah, it does terrify you.
The Department of Health has said that the risk to the UK remains low, and although we can't guarantee the virus won't arrive here, we have the measures in place to contain it. Juliet Fletcher, ITV News.
Well, earlier I spoke to Andy Gleedle from the charity the International Medical Corps. Now, he's leading a team building 2 new treatment centres in Sierra Leone. I started by asking him if the situation there is getting worse.
It certainly is worsening. The number of people contracting Ebola is increasing rapidly. Our ability to respond to it at this stage is quite limited. Across the region, I believe there's 7,000 or more cases at present, and of those cases, something like 3,000 people have died.
How frightened are people there?
Well, obviously, it's causing a huge amount of fear in the communities here. The way that the virus is contracted through bodily fluids, close contact with family members, we're seeing situations where very tragically, whole families are being affected by this, and it's causing a huge amount of fear because there is still a gap in understanding at the local level, the community level, of what is actually causing this.
What about you and your colleagues? I mean, how frightened are you for your own safety?
Well, I mean, we're medical professionals, so obviously we understand that as long as we take appropriate precautions in terms of protective equipment for ourselves, and we're very well trained in this type of response, I wouldn't say we're frightened, but we're certainly aware of the risks that we're taking.
Can you see an end to this awful disaster, or is it going to get worse before it gets better?
The predictions of the scientists are on this is that we could see over 1 million cases in West Africa if we don't manage to contain it by January. But on a more optimistic note, if we keep putting in treatment centres, if we manage to further educate the population around how to prevent contracting Ebola, and the international resources continue to come in, we could get it under control in a similar time frame, but inevitably we're going to see a deterioration before any hope on the horizon, I think.
Andy Gleadle, I think you and your colleagues are incredibly brave and doing a wonderful job, and the very best of luck to you.
Thank you so much.
In other news, there will be further strikes by refuse workers in Brighton and Hove next week. The industrial action by truck drivers will take place on Thursday and Friday and the following Monday. It's all because of an ongoing dispute over pay.
A Tesco petrol station in Poole, where drivers suffered engine problems after filling up with diesel, will remain closed for a number of weeks. Tesco says tests on the contaminated fuel at Branksome has proved inconclusive. Compensation has been paid to some customers.
The hovercraft pilot has been sentenced to 8 months in jail for being almost 3 times the drink-drive limit on a journey across the Solent.
36 passengers were on board the service between Portsmouth and the Isle of Wight when Richard Pease had a near miss with a tanker and a busy pier before missing the landing pad. Andrew Pate sends this report from Newport Crown Court.
Zigzagging out at sea, drunken pilot Richard Pease is at the controls as he tries to land the 6 o'clock hovercraft into Ryde. But instead, he goes badly off course and falls unconscious when the craft hits land. The prosecution outlined just how dangerous this was, with a road on one side of the landing pad and Ryde Pier on the other, and with 36 passengers on board the hovercraft. Richard Pease, seen here on the right, was breathalyzed 6 hours after collapsing and was found then to be almost 3 times over the drink-drive limit. The hovercraft takes 10 minutes to travel between Portsmouth and the Isle of Wight. The powerful vessel capable of going up to 45 knots, which is 50 miles per hour. With Mr. Pease unconscious, another crew member had to take over. And then a second pilot went on board to land the hovercraft safely.
The master and pilot of any vessel has a duty of responsibility to his crew and the fee-paying passengers of that vessel. Clearly, Mr. Pease in this situation was unfit to conduct those duties on the 22nd of June this year.
Richard Pease had an unblemished record during 18 years as a hovercraft pilot, the judge saying he destroyed all that in 1 day. With the hovercraft eventually on land, the passengers disembarked, while medical staff went to check on the pilot. Richard Pease was given an 8-month prison sentence, with the judge saying to him it was an appalling breach of duty, which could have resulted in tragedy. Andrew Pate, ITV News, Newport.
You're watching ITV News Meridian. Coming up.
Adventure on the high seas. The sailors from the south in Spain, hola, for the start of the Volvo Ocean Race.
And for more on all of our stories, go to our website itv.com/news/Meridian. You can call us on 0808 1010 095 or get in touch via Facebook. You can send us a tweet at ITV Meridian.
30 years ago this week, a massive bomb exploded in Brighton's Grand Hotel during the Tory party conference. The attack was the work of the Provisional IRA.
Their target, the Prime Minister, Margaret Thatcher, and her government. She escaped unhurt, but 5 people were killed and 31 injured.
Malcolm Shaw now looks back at that extraordinary night and its legacy.
When a man calling himself Roy Walsh checked into Brighton's Grand Hotel on a September day 30 years ago, he seemed like just another guest. It was only later that the fingerprints he left on a registration card revealed his true identity. Patrick McGee was the Provisional IRA's expert on explosives. His 3-night stay was no seaside break. Here in the privacy of his hotel room, McGee set about assembling a massive bomb. He used 30 pounds of gelignite and hid it behind a panel in the bathroom. He then set the timer with chilling precision. Just before 3 a.m. on the 12th of October 1984, a devastating blast tore the heart out of the Grand. The hotel was packed with delegates attending the Tory party conference. Norman Tebbit was among those trapped in the rubble. His wife Margaret was left paralysed. The Prime Minister, Margaret Thatcher, still awake and working on her keynote speech, escaped uninjured and emerged defiant.
Life must go on as usual.
And your conference will go on.
Thank you. Will go on.
Thank you.
All right, John. The conference will go on as usual.
She survived this. I mean, she could so easily have been killed, and yet she carried on, and she showed this remarkable British character, which I'm actually very proud of.
The explosion seriously injured 31 people and killed 5, including the Conservative whip, Sir Anthony Berry. Within days, his daughter Jo took a remarkable decision to try to turn a personal tragedy into something positive. After the bomber, Patrick McGee, was released from prison, she began working with him to promote peace and reconciliation.
I know it's hard and very challenging for people, but I wanted to see him as a human being because I thought if I saw him as the enemy, that was going to affect my humanity. And I wanted to find a way to hear his story, and the best way was to go and to meet him.
The release of Mrs. Thatcher's personal papers just last week revealed another extraordinary side to the story. William Thorne from Hove was her hairdresser during the conference. He still has the letter she sent apologising that the bomb meant she would miss her appointment later that same day.
I was very pleased with the way you did my hair, and the fact that it lasted so well through Friday was the real test. She must have been wanting to get some normality into life and to carry on with a kind of schedule and thinking about perhaps smaller things. But it must have dawned on her a couple of days later that the enormity of it.
In 1986, Margaret Thatcher returned to Brighton to celebrate the reopening of the Grand, a day the former head waitress remembers well.
Oh, I thought that was a lovely day, beautiful, sunny and everything, and she loved Concorde, you know. And they put on Concorde for her, didn't they? And it went out, came back in 3 times. It was like a seagull. That was a lovely memory that I have of it.
Today, the Grand Hotel bears no sign of that devastating night, but it's an image few here will ever forget. Malcolm Shaw, ITV News, Brighton.
Well, the bombing was described at the time as the most audacious attack on a British government since the gunpowder plot.
Its aim, of course, was simple: to kill Margaret Thatcher and the cabinet. So what impact did the bombing have on British politics? Here's our political correspondent, Phil Hornby.
The immediate effect was absolutely what the IRA didn't want. The way Mrs. Thatcher behaved that night and her determination that the conference would carry on, business as usual, earned her admiration and strengthened her image as the Iron Lady. It also made her rewrite her conference speech next day. She was originally intending to launch her strongest ever attack on the Labour Party, calling them the enemy within. It was a speech she never delivered. Surprisingly, the Brighton bomb didn't seem to harden her approach to the Irish problem. Indeed, The very next year, she signed the Anglo-Irish Agreement, the first tentative step on the road that would eventually lead to the peace process, although for more progress on that, we had to wait for John Major and then Tony Blair to become Prime Minister. The violence continued, of course, and in our region. The Eastbourne MP, Ian Gow, one of Mrs Thatcher's closest friends, but who'd resigned from her government over the Anglo-Irish Agreement, was killed by the IRA outside his home in the Sussex village of Hankham. As for people who attend party conferences, well, the long-lasting impact of the Brighton bomb is the almost oppressive security that there has been at these events ever since. Indeed, looking back, it's quite remarkable how lax the security was in Brighton 1984, a lack of security that made the Prime Minister and her cabinet such an easy target.
Phil Hornby reporting there. It's nearly 16 minutes past 6 and the ITV News continues with the national and international news at 6:30. With more now, here's Charlene White.
UKIP claim they are on the march after winning one parliamentary by-election and narrowly losing another. Former Tory MP Douglas Carswell won Clacton to become the party's first elected MP. Labour held on to Haywood and Middleton, but only after UKIP slashed their majority. And schoolgirl campaigner Malala Yousafzai, the teenager targeted by the Taliban, wins the Nobel Peace Prize. More on her remarkable story with Alistair Stewart and me at 6:30.
We will, Charlene. Thank you very much indeed. Now, it's set among the dreaming spires of Oxford, and tonight sees the return, the 8th series of Lewis.
Kevin Whately and Lawrence Fox are back as Lewis and Hathaway, reprising their roles as detectives who investigate grisly murders. Divya Kohli was on set for the filming of the series, which took a break last year.
Can I just take your name?
That's it. Phone's been switched off ever since.
Just like in 2001. 3 police officers, Neil Chadwick, Jimmy Alderman and Martin Wong, all killed by Graham.
It's an audience favourite, an extension of the thrilling Morse detective stories, and it's back for its 8th series. Last time we saw Lewis retire from years of police work and Hathaway taking an extended break, only to return now as the newly appointed DI.
DI Hathaway. Congratulations. You'd be back. Once a copper, always a copper.
Lewis returns to our screens after taking a year off.
Did you need that break in between to come back here? Because we're now in Series 8. Do you feel like you needed that break?
Yeah, I just suddenly worked out I'd been working non-stop for ITV since 1982 and hadn't had a summer off for whatever that is, 30-something years. And I needed a break, and so I played golf, and Lawrence was going to go to America and do all that. And so it was perfect, yeah, it was good.
Last 6 months.
But D.I. Hathaway isn't a people person, and Lewis is soon called out of retirement to lend a hand.
I thought you had lots of plans for your retirement.
I did. I do.
You're not enjoying it?
Oh, of course I am. Just taking a bit of a break.
You're taking a break from your retirement?
Yeah, that's the one. We have quite a number of TIFs as a result, who's in charge and all that malarkey. So, yeah, it just makes a bit of a change for us.
In the last series, Robbie and Laura kiss. Audience probably want to know what's going to happen next. Can you tell us?
Yeah, they're all sort of ensconced together at the beginning of the first one. I think we have our first row in about film 2 or 3 this year as well. So.
Angela Griffin joins the cast this year as DS Lizzie Maddox. She's fierce, practical, hard-working and just wants to get on with the job.
What's it been like working with Lawrence and Kevin?
Kevin's just, an absolute diamond, lovely. And Lawrence is just hilarious and funny. So you kind of got a bit of both going on. So yeah, it's quite nice. It's quite a nice dynamic, I think.
Yeah.
I think they like me.
I'm sure. And the locations. I mean, this one, for instance, beautiful.
It just doesn't stop. She's not, I stress, stepping in between the bromance. It is still 100% Lewis and Hathaway.
Don't mess with the bromance.
I know that. I know not to get involved in that. I'm hopefully just a happy add-on.
And will they, won't they come back for more? Kevin Waitley resists putting a stop to gossip and whisper.
Series 9, do you reckon?
There might be a Series 9, but I wouldn't make any promises beyond that.
Divya Kohli, ITV News.
It's going to be good. First of the 6-part series of Lewis on ITV, of course, this evening at 9 o'clock.
The sport now with Sarah Gom and plenty of action on the water, Sarah.
Yes, that's right, Sangeeta, thank you. It is known as the toughest sailing race in the world. The Volvo Ocean Race begins tomorrow, and for the first time in 12 years, an all-female crew will compete for the title. The sailors, many of whom are from the south coast, are currently preparing for the race start at the Spanish port of Alicante. And as Sally Simmons now reports, the female crew members have been stealing the limelight.
Well, 7 teams, 66 sailors will set sail tomorrow from Alicante. And some really serious contenders. Hampshire's Ian Walker, skipper of Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing, says nothing less than a win will do. But when it comes to the PR battle, just one team have won it already. Team SCA have most definitely painted the town pink.
To me here. 1, 2, ready to race!
The spotlight has been shining on Portsmouth's Sam Davis and the crew of Team SCA since they arrived in Alicante. Thousands of visitors, hundreds of journalists, all focused on the girls in pink.
Given that it's been so long since any woman has competed in the Volvo Ocean Race, it's, I guess, natural that there's quite a lot of attention.
Yeah, I mean, it's just mad, like from when we first got here at the beginning of September to now, and walking around the town and stuff, like my friends and family that have come out are just like, we are everywhere. Team SCA is everywhere, which is brilliant.
Libby Greenhouse from Brighton will choose the route as they race the 40,000 miles around the globe over 9 months. While other teams boast decades of experience, these distances are a first for Annie Lush from Poole.
I have never been at sea for the length of time we're about to go and do, so that will be new. And yeah, I think I'm just thinking about it in little chunks.
Skipper Ian Walker from Warsash has made his intention clear. The aim, he says, is to win after 2 less than successful attempts.
Third Volvo Ocean Race, and certainly we're in really good position, I think, to give it a good go this time. So won't be happy with anything other than top spot this time.
The 7 boats in this race are identical for the first time. No one can blame their equipment. It's all down to the people on board. Well, one person who won't be on board, we found out today on Team SCA, is Dee Kafari. Shock news as one of the world's most talented sailors doesn't even make the cut for the first leg to Cape Town. And needless to say, that's not exactly what she had in mind.
It's a huge disappointment, but you know, we're a strong squad and I know things will evolve. It's a long race, so I'm going to support them, be as fit as I can and ready in Cape Town to jump on, hopefully. So I'll be watching and supporting from the sidelines just for the start.
Well, the forecast for tomorrow's start is light winds, but as we know, anything can happen. 3 years ago, Abu Dhabi lost their mast within 6 hours. The first leg to Cape Town is 6,500 miles, 3 weeks long, and after that, we'll know who's in the game and who isn't.
Look forward to it. Sally Simmons reporting there, and Sally will have more from the race start over the coming days. On to football now, and no Premier League or Championship games because of the internationals this weekend, but it's business as usual in the lower leagues. Fresh from their midweek Johnston's Paint Trophy win, League One Crawley Town are at home to Peterborough, while in League Two Oxford travel to Cambridge and Portsmouth host Mansfield. And while Southampton's Fraser Foster and Nathaniel Klein didn't come on off the bench for England last night, some local youngsters did make it onto the pitch. The Chinham Tigers under-7s from Basingstoke were invited as special guests to Wembley, where England beat San Marino 5-0. They were invited out onto the pitch at half-time, where they were joined by Arsenal legend Ray Parlour. And don't forget, England's next Euro qualifier against Estonia kicks off at 5 o'clock on Sunday and is live here on ITV.
And of course we're going to win it.
Of course we are. Maybe not by 5 goals this time.
3 would be
a couple will do.
Thank you very much, Sarah. Now, some of the most remarkable women in our region will be attending a special awards ceremony in London next week.
The Women of the Year event celebrates those who've made a real difference in their communities and businesses. ITV's Lorraine Kelly will be announcing her winner of the title, Inspirational Woman of the Year. Charlotte Wilkins has our report.
As every air traveller knows, there's something special about those airline girls. So chucks away. Let's get down to sizing up the resident airline talent.
The aviation industry hasn't always taken women that seriously. Thankfully, things have moved on since the 1960s. Here at Gatwick, Dawn Elson is the head of engineering. She joined the airport after a distinguished career in the RAF.
If you study engineering, you can go on into so many careers. It's not all about getting your hands dirty and fixing things. It's about management, it's about leadership, and it's just about technical prowess and understanding. So it's a really interesting and exciting career.
On Monday, Dawn will be among the guests at the Women of the Year lunch in London. ITV's Lorraine Kelly will be announcing her special award for the most inspirational woman of 2014. And few are more inspirational than Jo Ward. When her first child, Abigail, was stillborn 4 years ago, Jo set up a charity in her memory, helping other families cope with the loss of a baby.
Because it's quite a taboo subject, they've not felt able to speak out and they've not had the support. So slowly we're hopefully going to give those people the guidance and the support that they need.
The Women of the Year event is celebrating its 60th anniversary, shining a light on extraordinary ladies from all walks of life, whose achievements are an inspiration to others. Charlotte Wilkins, ITV News.
Inspiration indeed. More on ITV's Lorraine on Monday morning. Plus, we'll be at that special lunch with a report on our inspirational women here Monday night, 6 o'clock.
Simon's going to inspire us now with some Friday fun.
Indeed, it's been a bit hit and miss, the weather this week, hasn't it? So to cheer us up, forget what's going on outside, let's look to better scenes of outside in the game we love to play, Sunrise Sunset.
Oh, we love that.
Yeah, let's see. You like it? Are you any good at it? That's the question. Have a look at the first picture. A very beautiful bit of cathedral action here from Richard Pinfield. Is the sun rising or setting over Salisbury?
I believe it's a sunrise.
I think it's an obvious sunrise.
Unfortunately, it's a sunset. Not a good start. OK. Here's Donnie's very lovely view of Basingstoke from just yesterday.
Oh, well, that's clearly a sunset.
No, it's clearly a sunrise. OK, Bembridge on the Isle of Wight, although Aaron Davis, who took the photo, reckons it could be the Serengeti. What do you reckon, start or end of the day?
Sunset.
Sunset, one right, excellent. OK, the unmistakable Stonehenge taken by Kevin Down.
Oh, don't put me on the spot, Fred. Sunrise.
It was on his way to work. It was sunrise. Yeah. Shane Clark from Bicester took this whilst on holiday in Tintagel in Cornwall.
Sure, that's a sunset.
It is a sunset.
Oh,
and finally, Harry Harman on Hailing Island, keeping an eye on the weather now. It's on the slide. Look.
No, Fred. Come on, let's do it together. Rise.
Rise.
Set.
Oh.
I wasn't keeping score. How did you do?
Three each. A draw.
Yeah, well, that'll do.
3-3.
Yeah, phew.
We'll settle for that. We are not overly competitive, honest. Simon Parkin, weekend weather.
That's us driving on, us driving off in France, and us on the bridge.
Driving to Europe. Eurotunnel Shuttle sponsors ITV Meridian weather.
Well, thanks for all of the pictures of the stormy weather, and there's more thunder and lightning possibilities over the next 24 hours. More showers to come as they feed round the area of low pressure. We've had quite strong winds today. As we head into tomorrow, the winds drop light, and that means any showers will be fairly slow moving. So if a downpour lands on you, you'll certainly know about it. Back to this evening and overnight, and the showers will continue. And yes, there will be some heavy ones in places. Clear spells around those showers, though. That's where temperatures will drop down to a chilly 7 or 8 degrees. And tomorrow morning, showers already from the word go. There might be a bit of a lull late morning when things calm down a bit, but they'll certainly pep up into the afternoon. And again, some hail and thunder not out of the question. Now, because that wind is going to slowly blow them through, it means they'll take a bit longer to get to you if you have a dry spell. So some decent bits of brightness around, and that's when temperatures will climb to around 15 or 16 degrees. High tide times, well, you can see in Brighton, 1:30 in the morning, 10 to 2 in the afternoon, and then a better day on Sunday. Might be a bit grey first thing, but generally dry before some rain arrives later on.
Eurotunnel Shuttle sponsors ITV Meridian weather.
And that's how things are looking this evening. In just a moment here on ITV, we have the national and international news with Charlene White and Alistair Stewart.
For now, though, from the team here at ITV Meridian, thanks so much for watching. Have a lovely, happy, peaceful weekend.
Happy weekend.
Bye-bye.